Boy, eh? Miguel Gasser.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the NTN Morning Update. My name is Jessie Leonce. Today is Tuesday, the 28th of July. We're rounding off on the month. Thank you so much. We have a few headline stories to go over for the 24-hour news cycle. The lead of them, we have an update from the Ministry of Health and Wellness on the investigation that was initiated coming from the St. Lucian, who was tested positive for COVID-19 in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Also, we take a look back at yesterday. Corporate entities continue to support the fight against COVID-19, and the newly appointed Goodwill ambassador, we spoke about her a little bit yesterday morning. She is eager to take on her new role. That is Claudia Edward Lardner. We have the details to these stories coming up later on in the broadcast. We hope you could stay tuned for the duration. If you're just joining us, a special good morning to you listening live on air and online. We are live on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, as well as our cable channel 122 on NTN. We are coming to you live from the Information Command Center, and we do hope you could stay tuned. I'm joined in studio, as usual, by my colleague, Carlton Cyril. Morning, Carlton. I see our producer caught us off guard there this morning. We were in quite a heated discussion, and he was like, go, go, go. But we started for the morning officially, but the program started much earlier.
And on a good note, definitely, as we say, good morning, bonjour, pour vous qui écoutez nous ici à cette camarade pour information, pour développement ici à NTN GIS. Aujourd'hui, c'est mardi, le 28 juillet, et nous avons une information qu'on nous joigne parmi le développement qui savent une situation côté nous tenons un monde testé positif. Là, il vient pour corona, nous avons développement les 5 monde ça voyager aller sévèrement. Et ben nous avons plus développement là il vient pour ça. L'autre développement nous avons touché hier nous côté en contribution en fait côté OICS commission vient ensemble et puis secteur privé pour bon équipement by COVID-19. Parmi l'autre développement, nous avons les venus pour Mazer Claudia. Ici, yon qui trouve quoi apprêté comme ambassadeur, les venus pour Saïka fait comme yon artiste. Ce développement ça explique qu'on nous dit merci pour vous qui suivent, écoutez nous ici à Sainte Camadlan pour information. Non, moi c'est Carlton Cooks Cyril. Merci tellement écouté en écoute pour ce développement ça et puis plus bon matin.
Thanks for that. St. Lucia's second largest travel market is again open for business, having been closed since March 23rd when the country's borders were shut down due to the pandemic. The reintroduction of British Airways to the island is another positive sign for the tourism industry. The UK market is a significant contributor to St. Lucia's visitor arrivals. St. Lucia continues to be a destination of choice, and we hear more about that from Anicia Antoine as we begin for the morning. Take a listen.
Another important tourism market has opened its doors to St. Lucia. The arrival of British Airways just about 2:48 p.m. at the Uranora International Airport on Sunday, July 26th, has sparked yet another positive sign for the tourism industry. The UK market is St. Lucia's second largest market, following the USA. 270 visitors and nationals disembarked the aircraft, with 65 transiting to St. Vincent. The remaining 205 made their way to a nurse's station, where they are required to sanitize hands and have their temperatures checked prior to entry. They also went through additional screening prior to advancing to immigration and customs. Since the arrival of the first commercial flight on July 9th, port health authorities have been enforcing and adhering to the strict protocols in place for travel to the island. The St. Lucia Tourism Authority worked tirelessly throughout the pandemic to keep the destination top of mind and remind the traveling public of the protocols that must be observed when visiting St. Lucia.
People of St. Lucia, they continue to be very anxious about the flights and the markets that are opening. But I just want to take this opportunity to again assure them that we are doing everything possible to keep them safe and to make calculated, measured, and very strategic decisions as we look at the opening of tourism. I want to make it absolutely clear that their health is first and foremost. But at the same time, we also welcome the UK flights. This is really the commencement of the second largest market for tourism. And I think it bodes well for the first phase of the opening of St. Lucia. So I welcome British Airways again, and I welcome the opening of the UK market, but we continue to open and be, I would say, cautiously optimistic.
To celebrate the reintroduction of British Airways, 2 lucky families were gifted on arrival.
Your fabulous family has just won 4 nights, including breakfast, in a 1-bedroom villa at the gorgeous Windjammer Landing Villa Beach Resort. How are you feeling?
Great.
Talk to me.
Ryan, I'm going alone.
Welcome. Welcome home. What if I told you you just won 4 nights at the Bay Gardens Beach Resort for next time?
Oh, wow, that's fantastic. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
I'm not.
Okay, my flight was good, really good. We were treated. Yeah, we always travel on Virgin, but this is the first time, obviously, because Virgin's not flying. We've traveled on British Airways, and we were treated really well. Very friendly staff.
As per usual protocol, locals and visitors alike are required to follow all regulations in St. Lucia, as failure to do so could result in stringent penalties, including the return of visitors to the jurisdiction of origin at own expense. The arrival of British Airways is the first flight from the UK since the closure of the borders on March 23rd and will set the tone for other commercial carriers from that market. With the tourism industry on the rebound, health and safety is paramount during the pilot phase. Travelers to St. Lucia are reminded to pre-register prior to arrival by visiting www.stlucia.org/COVID-19. For the Government of St. Lucia, I am Anicia Antoine reporting.
Thanks for that news report, Anicia. We continue with this morning's news update. St. Lucia, as of the 26th of July 2020, has recorded a total of 24 COVID-19 cases. 22 of these have fully recovered and 2 patients remain in care at the respiratory hospital and remain stable. A total of 2,927 tests have been conducted to date. The Ministry of Health and Wellness, since the indication of a St. Lucia national who traveled to St. Vincent and the Grenadines on Sunday, July 19th, 2020, testing positive for COVID-19, has undergone intense contact tracing, screening, and testing of all possible contacts in relation to this case. Dr. Sharon Belmar-George is the Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and she has some good news. I know there were a lot of people, Carlton, who were a little worried, anxiety over this case and potentially this person having gone about at their home in their area before leaving. You know, before you leave to travel, you bid everyone farewell, hugs and kisses and so on. And so we hear from Dr. Sharon Belmar-George on the outcome of the investigation so far.
The family, close friends, and work colleagues of the individual have been tested and placed in quarantine. None of the contacts of the individual, including family, friends, and employees, have developed symptoms. On Friday, July 24th, 2020, a total of 197 test results were received, and on Sunday, July 26, 2020, a total of 133 samples were also processed. The total of 330 results were all negative. These include the contacts of the case and other samples as per usual. Based on our review on the weekend, there are only 4 outstanding contacts to be tested today. As we continue with the phased reopening of the country, the risk of introduction of COVID-19 is increased. We expect and we anticipate to manage cases. The public is advised that all of the protocols are still in place, including the reduced numbers for public transportation and protocols for private and public sector establishments. These also include the use of face masks in public and the maintenance of safe physical distancing from others.
That was Dr. Sharon Belmar-George, the Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, just indicating there that the family, close friends, and work colleagues of the individual have been tested, have been tested and placed in quarantine, and none of the contacts of that individual, including the family, friends, and employees, have developed symptoms. So on Friday, July 24th, 2020, a total of 197 test results were received, and on July 26th, that was Sunday, a total of 133 samples were processed. A total of 330 tests results were all negative, and these include the contacts of the case and other samples as per usual. So that is the outcome of the investigations, part of the outcome of the investigations that have so far been made into this individual, the national testing positive as they traveled to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And at this point, we can just say, having kept our fingers crossed, we can say, thankfully, that there are no cases that have come about due to this particular individual, this particular national who tested positive for COVID-19 after arriving in St. Vincent. We are due for our first break for the morning. We do have some more stories to give you this morning. We do hope you could stay tuned for that. We also have on standby, well, in the green room at the moment, Mr. Nyus Alfred from the National Youth Council. And if we could go back to the presentation, the check handing over ceremony that was held last week, Monday, and that went to the charities and other organizations, not-for-profit organizations, coming from the Prime Minister's Independence Ball. And the National Youth Council is one of the organizations that benefited from the funds raised, and so we will be hearing from Mr. Alfred how these monies will be spent and other work that is ongoing on the part of the NYC. So stay tuned for that and more news coming up after this break.
She's been watching, waiting, wondering when the sands of time will give way to a tide of change, and for yesterday and today to become a new tomorrow. For a time when her sun can kiss the cheeks of your loved one and her stars can twinkle in her honeymoon skies. When her earthly embrace will reassure and calm your soul. And her unique view can change your whole perspective. Proudly, she has risen to meet new challenges and to provide safe harbor to all who reach her shores. For her hopes and dreams still stand, shoulder to shoulder, a precious reminder of experiences yet to come. So, wherever your moments and memories take you, let her sense of adventure set you free. She is Saint Lucia. Let her inspire you.
Thank you so much for staying tuned. If you're just joining us, a special good morning to you. This is the NTN Morning Update. Jesse Leonce and Carlton Cyril in studio live from the Information Command Center. We continue with news for the 24-hour news cycle. We have the government of St. Lucia deferring the enactment of the Styrofoam and Plastic Food Service Containers Prohibition Act. In 2019, the government in Parliament presented a phased approach to reducing single-use plastic in St. Lucia. The initiative is necessary for the effective management of plastic pollution in the country while addressing the health side effects associated with some of the food containers being utilized on a daily basis. The initiative is being introduced in two phases, with the first phase having been enacted on August 1st, 2019. This phase supports a ban on the importation of all styrofoam and selected single-use plastic food containers, service containers. However, stakeholders indicate that the transition is proving difficult. We have some details in this report from an update coming from the Ministry of Education. Stay tuned. Listen, take a listen.
However, following consultation among the Department of Sustainable Development, other relevant agencies and stakeholders indicated that they faced several challenges in the first phase of the legislation and anticipated further hindrances in their ability to move into phase 2. Minister for Education, Innovation, Gender Relations and Sustainable Development, Honorable Dr. Gail Brigabert, indicated that the challenges already confronting stakeholders were further compounded by the COVID-19 pandemic, and all these issues are being taken into consideration.
Mr. Speaker, remaining cognizant of the progress we have made with this initiative and mindful of the concerns that stakeholders have brought to the fore for consideration, I therefore present to you and fellow parliamentarians a request to amend the Styrofoam Bill as stated in the document before us to allow for the following, and that is one, the continued use of items in Part A until July 31st, 2021. 2, the restriction on the manufacturing, sale, distribution, and use of items prohibited in Part A of the Act as of August 1st, 2021. And thirdly, the ban on the importation of items listed in Part B of the Act as of August 1st, 2021. The restriction on manufacturing, sale, distribution, and use of these items, we're asking that be effective August 1st, 2022. So in summary, Mr. Speaker, we are extending the dates in each case by 1 year.
Phase 2 was scheduled to commence on August 1, 2020. Phase 2 supports a restriction of the manufacturing, sale, distribution, and use of items prohibited in Phase 1. Phase 2 also supports a ban on the importation of other single-use plastic food service containers, inclusive of disposable plastics, bowls, knives, forks, straws, and hinged takeaway containers, to name a few, with a later ban on the manufacturing, sale, distribution, and the use of the said items. Honorable Dr. Rigobert indicated that the government is cognizant of the difficulties confronting all sectors during these unprecedented times, and as such has made provisions with a view of alleviating the challenges.
We want to assure the public that we are not just concerned about protecting the environment, but also with safeguarding their livelihoods. Because of the cost of the alternative items, the prices for meals have increased, in some cases by as much as $3, and we've heard that cry, Mr. Speaker. It would therefore be remiss of me to not at this time reference a recently approved cabinet memo that seeks to secure a 100% waiver of import duties on all biodegradable, compostable, and plant-based food service containers. We believe, Mr. Speaker, that this will bring much relief to entrepreneurs, restaurateurs, and of course our consumers.
Parliament approved the Styrofoam and Plastic Food Service Containers Prohibition Act number 22 of 2019 in June 2019, and the act was enacted on the 1st of August 2019. From the Government Information Service, I am Janelle Norville.
Thank you, Janelle, for that news report. I now hand over to Carlton for the morning, just to summarize the last 3 stories for the NTN Morning Update so far.
Merci tellement, Jessie. Ça, c'est côté, nous avons merci pour être en écoute. Quand on est pour faire performance, nous avons commencé par COVID. Vous savez, là, il venu pour côté nous et puis COVID, et bien pour date, nous avons 24 personnes qui trouvent qu'ils testé positif. Pour à présent, nous avons 22 en ces cas qui ont recouvert. L'autre DA, il y a un traitement qui fait bien tout bonnement. Pour date, nous avons conducté 2927 tests. Pour date, ça c'est quantité de tests que nous avons fait ici en Sainte-Lucie. Et puis là, vous savez, il y a ces cas qui mènent à chaque discussion avec parler de en Sainte-Lucie, c'est un qui nous faire et puis un Saint-Lucien qui voyage à les Séversant dimanche côté il trouve quoi tester. Vous savez, là il vient pour famille avec ces moun qui travailler puis là ces moun ça yo a trouvé quoi tester puis yo a mis yo en quarantaine pour date yo dit pièce c'est moun ça ka mouche pièce sin les ni pour faire et puis Covid. Là vendredi le 24 juillet ou ka savent yo testé 197 et résultat ça vient le 26. Et puis là, en tout ces tests, ça, 133, c'est simple, yo aller puis là, il a montré résultat tout vie négative. Quoi, ça c'est 330, tout test là vie négative. Quoi, là il vient pour ces moun yo ja testé, là il vient pour situation ça. Moun était venu contacter et puis là il vient pour les autres côtés il peut-être déjà passé. Là nous t'en officiel ministre qui dit yo ka continuer et qu'on ka continuer ouvert pays à Wislan ka vini plus haut pour Covid et puis pour ça yo ka mandé public là souple suivre protocole qui jamais été en place parce que ça c'est seule manière nous kay wabaté et ben nous kay empêcher vermin s'immerger expressement là vini pour public là vini pour transportation yo ka dit tous ces protocoles ça nécessaire là parmi bagay qu'on nous ka dit ici à tous les bons matins servir massou en public fait assis ou chain distance physical hord yon à l'autre si moi aller pour dire aussi là vini pour importance là dat ki moun chain standard là recommandation yo bay là mais c'est pour empêcher vermin s'immerger il dit ça bien important il ka parler de laver la main et puis savon eh ben sous ka sanitize la main fait ça côté savon et glo pas avaler couvert bouchou néon sous ka estene dans serviette yo ka dit jeter ces bagages ça dans manière qui appropriée quand ou ka savent messieurs dames comme ça qui bien important c'est qu'on nous ka ouvert il ka venir plus susceptible pour les venir pour vermin ça là avertissement ka sorti hors département santé. Là il vini pour plastique en cette liste styrofoam ou kay savent à présent un gouvernement té en kay parlement et parmi bagay qui parle ba honorable Gail Rigobert qui ni responsabilité sans parmi l'autre bagay et j'ai dit après yo tan kui c'est moun nan qui t'est involvé ça c'est place business pour pas mener ces bail sans tout et ça yo te han yo te ni pour servir il dit là en chay c'est moun nan première phase là il vini pour yo pêcher ça en trois pays il dit yo trouvé yon de trois difficultés que yo hatan kui c'est moun nan pour la peine yo j'ai ajouté à sous joie yo ni pour servir ça yo ni et puis yo ka visiter pour à présent ça yo ka faire moun qui ka mener c'est d'autres là qui primaire pour environnement c'est moun ça Jean business yo kay hen concession yo pa kay ni pour payer duty à sous ces bagages ça dès que yo kay bay c'est moun ça yo a ajouté date là côté yo pa kay ni pour servir pour yon l'année quoi là Mazeri Gobat a dit ça c'est pour yon ces raisons yo vini pour demander pour passer bill ça pour ajouter pour plus temps pour bay ces moun ça chance pour amasser koyo et puis pour yo même ça service ça yo te hani là et mettre bagay en place et à sous ça aussi bay yo chance là pour yo même yo ka un anti soulagement parce que yo pas ni pour payer les vini pour duty à sous ces bagay ça ça c'est un parmi ça qui est déjà discuté. Eh bien, là aussi, il y a un second annoncement, là, il vient pour nous qui vie ouvert pays, ou qui est de British Airways, ça a sorti l'Angleterre, eh bien, avion ça entré en pays, et puis, nous ça c'est un bon bagage tout bonnement. Là, il vient pour situation qui nous pas tenir pièce, moun qui a visité, exafé touriste fermé net. Eh bien, là, à présent, nous avons pays, là, nous avons fermé le 23 mars. Et tout partout était fermé. Parmi avions qui pas de venir ici, c'était British Airways. Mais à présent, yo rentré là, mais c'est nous bien content pour tant visiteurs monde qui sort l'autre pays Saint-Lucien qui était voulait retourner yo vie ici et puis vous savez ça c'est un qui a contribué les vini pour ici à Saint-Lucie les vini pour car expressement dans toute COVID ça c'est cas ça nous ni ici et c'est un bon bagay pour nous savent nous ka ça fait travail les venir pour touristes et moun ka visiter nous ka vivre en place là mais ministre honorable Dominique Fred était bien pressé pour dire moun ni pour changer nous ka ouvert et ni moun ka visiter et puis ni Saint-Lucien qui a retourné les venir pour situation ça ni pour suivre protocole qui a commencé à sous airport pour aller à n'importe établissement yoyé et ben en quarantine parce que ça bien important pour nous pas du temps nous qu'a dit nous content pour cette nouvelle ça est bien important pour moun savent où ni pour suivre protocole parce que ça c'est seule manière nous avoir combattre avec un péché COVID-19 si mais ici nous va continuer puis développement ici restez en écoute cette commande pour information et développement. Merci tellement.
Thanks for that, Carlton. And for those of you who got a chance to listen and watch in on our broadcast yesterday morning, we did have a special handing over ceremony. The OECS Commission through Digicel and Massey stores were able to make handover PPEs as well as 2 ventilators to the government and people of St. Lucia. The corporate entities have continued to show their support to the COVID-19 response. Massey stores and Digicel have both been instrumental in supporting the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, OECS, with the procurement of 5 ventilators and 60 articles of personal protective equipment so far through the Commission's private sector partnership against the COVID-19 initiative for the benefit of the region, the member states. St. Lucia accepted its share of equipment in a virtual handing over ceremony on Monday, July 27th. And of course, I did prepare a news report on that event. Take a listen. St. Lucia is the recipient of 2 of 5 ventilators procured by the OECS Commission, thanks to a generous monetary donation by Massey Stores. The supermarket chain responded quickly and favorably to the Commission's request when it launched the private sector partnership against COVID-19 fundraiser initiative. In a symbolic handover to St. Lucia's Ministry of Health and Wellness, Massey's Managing Director Martin Dorville reaffirmed his support in the region's COVID-19 fight.
Long before the crisis peaked, we were very well aware that we had to play a major national part, a national role in providing that support, and more so to the health sector. So when Dr. Jules asked, it was, and he would tell you, it was with very little time lag that we were able to say yes to $100,000 US dollars in support of the cause.
From the 5 ventilators purchased, St. Lucia and Dominica will receive 2 each, while St. Vincent and the Grenadines will receive 1. Additional ventilators have already been procured from other funding sources and are en route to the region. 60,000 articles of personal protective equipment will be distributed to 9 member states, including St. Lucia, courtesy Digicel. The telecommunications provider was the second private entity to commit to a monetary donation to the OECS Commission towards the COVID-19 fight.
It is indeed our pleasure to have partnered with the OECS as part of our COVID response. Over the last few months, we've been working with the governments across the region in terms of their priorities, health and education. Coming together with the OECS, we realized that across the region we needed a collaboration and a collective response. And PPEs being one of the things that the frontline workers needed the most, we decided that we would contribute to that. And we do hope that this goes a long way within the 9 departments, the 9 countries, and we remain committed in our response and our working together with the governments. So thank you so much for being a partner with us. Thank you.
That was Siobhan James Alexander, Chief Executive Officer of Digicel St. Lucia. Jenny Daniel, Deputy Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, accepted both donations on behalf of the government and people of St. Lucia. The British Virgin Islands, Anguilla, Montserrat, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, Dominica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Grenada will also receive a share of the Digicel-funded PPEs. Within a fortnight, the OECS Commission managed to mobilize US $700,000 through its private sector partnership against COVID-19 initiative. This fundraiser emerged from the Sustainable Development Movement in 2020 that is guided by a rigorous private sector engagement strategy.
But it is interesting that our private sector in the OECS has responded, despite the hit to them, in the ways in which they have. And I think that is where we ground our appreciation to partners like Massey and Digicel who've come forward, because whereas multinationals far larger than they have are asking for bailouts to the tune of trillions, here they are suffering equally from COVID, but assisting in every way possible to make this thing happen.
The OECS Commission handover of COVID-19 equipment was held at the GIS studios during the NTN Morning Update. For the Government Information Service, I am Jessie Leonce reporting. And that was just a wrap-up of the OECS Commission handing over ceremony yesterday. 60,000 articles of personal protective equipment to go toward 9 member states of the OECS, and these 60,000 articles of PPEs are funded by Digicel. We also have the procurement of 5 ventilators on the part of the Commission, thanks to the generous donation as well of Massey Stores. And so we do appreciate that, 2 of the ventilators are coming to St. Lucia. And there was a point made that hopefully it doesn't have to be used, but in any eventuality, if we find ourselves in a situation where we do need to use these ventilators, we have patients, COVID-19 suspects, COVID-19 cases needing ventilation, then they will be able to use the machines.
Oui, Jessie, bien vu. Encore, nous allons continuer ici à développement à un bon mot de parole. Hier, nous sommes ici à l'avenue pour OECS Commission et puis secteur privé. Et nous allons parler de Massey et puis Digicel. Yo vini et puis Kamouche, qui manière nous sani commitment secteur privé ensemble et puis 80 puis gouvernement OECS là. La Massey pour paye, yo déjà by donation à dit $100,000 américains et puis pour ça nous 5 machines. Ça c'est équipement pour assister mon point l'expiration mon qui trouvé contacter puis Covid la cette ici kay dans ces machines ça Dominique kay D et puis Saint-Vincent kay joine yon ça c'est contribution et pour paye monsieur Dorville qui est responsable pour Massey ici à cette ici a dit les yo approché yo il pas difficile pour yo dire oui yo fait l'argent ça available docteur Dicus Jules directeur général pour OECS la approché yo fait contribution ça 104 là parmi bagay dit te kay à si we ben quoi nous pas ni pièce raison pour servir mais à même l'air il a dit yo prend en considération travailler yo avec département santé pour faire contribution ça là il vini pour Digicel à présent Digicel by à peu près à pas de l'argent Digicel by 60,000 PPE ça c'est équipement protectif pour moun qui travaille en secteur essentiel et puis nous kay ça trouver quoi kay distribuer parmi cette place là qu'on Anguilla, Montserrat, Antigua, Barbuda, St. Kitts, Dominique, Saint Lucia, Severson, Grenadines et puis Grenada. Toutes ces places-là qui ont bénéfice, les venus pour ça, pour payer. CEO Digicel ici, M. Alexander a dit, yo qui continuer travailler ensemble parce que les nous venons ensemble chay bagay ça fait. Pour payer, directeur général Dr. Didicus Jules, il dit à présent, il y a ces bagay qui bien évident, c'est dat qui nous ni pour catcher en différentes manières nous ni pour en différents catcher les vini pour qui manière nous travail Kawai blanc et puis OECS là pour la peine parce qu'il y a présent ni secteur privé ni gouvernement ni pour venir ensemble pour faire un chay bagay fait et puis dit là il a mouché si c'est grand pays qui ni corporation qui a fait billions dollars qui pour assistance ou ça imaginer nous ici mais il y en a ces bail qui était bien encouragé pour tant à pas dire c'est mon qui parler dit yo bien content pour faire donation ça yo ka dit nous ni pour venir ensemble pour combattre COVID-19 ensemble nous ça gain l'argent les vini pour COVID-19 et puis nous ça c'est un beau mot parole et une bonne manière pour approcher bon matin. Merci tellement pour vous écouter. Nous allons continuer ici à bon matin.
Thanks for that, Carlton. This morning, as mentioned earlier, we do have in the green room preparing to come on set Mr. Nyus Alfred from the National Youth Council. And he will be speaking to us on the recent handing over ceremony, check handing over ceremony that was held coming off of the Prime Minister's Independence Ball. We saw the proceeds amounting to about $300,000 going to charities and other non-profit organizations. So we have a news report on the government of St. Lucia appointing alternative international musician Claudia Edward-Ladner as St. Lucia's newest Goodwill Ambassador. And when we come back from that report, we will have Nyus on set to speak to us about the work of the NYC and the benefit of this latest cash injection into the organization.
The government of St. Lucia has appointed alternative international musician Claudia Edward-Ladner as its newest Goodwill Ambassador. The objective of the Goodwill Ambassadors program is to serve as a catalyst for socio-economic transformation in all sectors related to the creative arts and the industries that they support. The Goodwill Ambassadors program consists of citizens of St. Lucia who have achieved international acclaim and are able to leverage it for the benefit of the country. The Minister in the Ministry of Tourism, Information and Broadcasting, Culture and Creative Industries, with responsibility for culture and creative industries, Senator Honorable Fortuna Bell-Rose, noted that the appointment of the Goodwill Ambassadors has already begun to bear fruit.
So we found some of those very good people in the society to be a part of us. They've been working with us steadfastly. Quite a few of them have already delivered, substantial projects to St. Lucia. I know for a fact we have people like Jalim Udovic, who is working steadfastly globally and dealing with a number of artists, world-renowned artists, who, of course, I think in his case, there'll be one artist coming in to St. Lucia very shortly. We'll make the announcement. And, of course, making a presentation to the government of St. Lucia. We have Mr. Ken Chitoli, who lives in Canada, but has been a philanthropist and providing quite a bit of support to us, particularly around medical supplies and also the disabled persons in the society. We also have Taj Weeks, everybody know, a musician and philanthropist as well, doing great work, in community across St. Lucia.
The newly appointed Goodwill Ambassador, Claudia Edward-Ladner, is a Caribbean gem and a household name in St. Lucia. She is very popular with the Asian continents, especially in Thailand, where she does her annual jazz circuit. Claudia has performed in the USA, Europe, Asia, and the entire Caribbean. Miss Edward-Ladner has played star roles in a Canadian Lifetime TV and a Caribbean film. Senator Honorable Bell-Rose explained that Claudia is being recognized not only for her international achievements, but for the work she has done through her charity-based organization, Edward for Education.
Claudia, as you know, has been a singer, global singer as well. She sings across the world, but more importantly for us, when we look at the work that she's doing, particularly here in St. Lucia, with respect to our schools and our students, I think it's something that needs to be given greater recognition. She's been able to build a theater. I'm not sure how many St. Lucians have built a theater within a school. So she's been able to work with a school to develop a theater. She's been able to work with the Corinth Secondary School to be able to develop a lab, a sick lab for the children. And of course, in the case of the Ave Maria School, she's been able to work with them to develop a learning center. So, that's the kind of work you want to recognize, and that's the kind of acknowledgement you want to give to persons who are giving back.
As a newly appointed St. Lucia Ambassador, Miss Edward-Ladner plans to undertake a number of activities and projects geared at benefiting the youth of St. Lucia.
With this new appointment, I think it will open more doors for me to continue the work that I'm doing. And even for me, it would be a pleasure working with other Goodwill Ambassadors to even do greater, bigger projects in the future.
Currently, 12 St. Lucians are appointed under the Goodwill Ambassadors program. From the Government Information Service, I am Anicia Antoine reporting.
Thank you for that news report, Nyus Antoine. And that rounds up the news stories, the developments for the 24-hour news cycle. We now segue into our interview for the morning. We do have Nyus Alfred from the National Youth Council in studio with us. Many of you would remember that we had the check handing over ceremony about a week ago. That was last Monday, I believe, of the Prime Minister handing over the proceeds from the Prime Minister's Independence Ball. That was the final mass event before COVID-19, and they managed to raise about $300,000, and the proceeds of which were meant and did go to the charities and non-profit organizations here in St. Lucia, select organizations based on the work that they do. The National Youth Council was one of these organizations, and at this juncture, I would like to just say welcome to you, Nyus. Thank you for being here. And if you could just speak to us about the experience last week, having accepted the check from the committee, the planning organization for the Prime Minister's Independence Ball, and the general feeling as to having this cash injection into your organization, knowing the arduous task that is ahead in terms of trying to fund youth projects and what have you.
Okay, so first of all, thank you very much for having me. And as it relates to the feeling, it was one of relief, because the NYC has been trying for the longest while to procure equipment for the refurbishment of our office, because the NYC office used to be located on the outskirts of Castries. And we relocated to the center of Castries, the William Peter Boulevard, because we wanted young people to have access to the organization that was formed to represent them, basically. So we decided to move towards the center of town, knowing that young people would have access to the NYC. But what we saw, Jesse, is that the NYC office became more than just a secretariat where we would do our basic administrative work. It became a place where young people would come to interact with each other, where young people would come to do homework, where young people would come to basically have important meetings and engage. And a lot of the time you find that when they came to the office, it's because they preferred being there than elsewhere. Sometimes even at home, where they had situations at home where the NYC office would serve as a safe space for them. So since then, we've been trying to build that safe space in the center of town where young people can have access to these services, where if you don't have a computer and you need to get homework done, where you have the NYC office there, where you can get these things done, where you could get probably access to even counseling services if you get certified counselors to volunteer. So that is what we've been trying to build. It's been a very difficult task because we've reached out to quite a few of the corporate houses in St. Lucia. We've not been successful in that. So that donation certainly will go an extremely long way in ensuring that we create that safe space for young people in St. Lucia.
Wonderful. Can you just give us an understanding? You mentioned creating the safe space. So the sum that has been donated to you will go towards the work toward the safe space furnishing and what have you?
Yes, if the amount in its entirety will go towards that purpose because we see the need for it.
Okay.
Especially during a time where young people, a lot of them have been impacted by the effects of COVID-19, where they're not employed. So we're actually looking to do supplementary programs as well to get young people engaged, whether it is to teach them how to write CVs, teach them how to do proper interviews and all of that. So as much as uplifting the aesthetics of the office, because you want the space to be as youthful as possible, it will also go towards some of these supplementary programs that would have young people engaged at a maximum.
Okay, it would be nice to see a rendering perhaps of what the finished product might look like, but if you could just give us some insight. Plush couches, because you did mention it's going to be a place of solace. It is already a place of solace for young people, but what are some of the ideas of the executive in terms of making it more homey and comfortable for young persons who come there?
First of all, we're trying to create something that when you enter, it feels youthful. Because as much as we want young people to be engaged, we want them to feel very comfortable in this space as well. So we're going to ensure that the furniture, the decor in there speaks to young people, where they can come and they can engage, where, so I actually came into the NTN studios a while ago, and I saw a piece of furniture that I think would look perfect for our office. So I've actually started making a few calls during the time I've been waiting to see if we could get something of that sort. Of course, for the purposes of meetings, we have a conference room that would need to be upgraded as well, so we will try to do that. But yeah, it's youthful is the best word that I can use to describe how it will look and how it will feel as well.
Okay, wonderful. We are speaking to Mr. Nyus Alfred from the National Youth Council. When we come back, we find out some more information about the organization, what the ongoing work of the organization is, and just coming off of speaking on the proceeds, the donation coming from the Prime Minister's Independence Ball to the NYC, and going into, in this next segment, the work of this organization. Stay tuned.
Overnight, growing national unrest.
Society, a digital cashless society, one world currency.
A vaccine for COVID-19.
Drop the COVID virus.
Macy's iconic flagship.
Track the coronavirus.
Everybody vaccinated.
On the coronavirus.
The opposition to the lockdown.
An infected conspiracy theories.
Bizarre claims.
The truth about the origin of COVID-19 hidden from the rest of the world. And the Chinese.
In this constantly changing environment, resulting in sensory overload, cut through the noise and tune in to the National Television Network, the official source of information, all facts.
Thank you so much for staying tuned. If you're just joining us, a special good morning to you. We are speaking to Mr. Nyus Alfred from the National Youth Council. And just before we went to break, we were speaking about the donation from the Prime Minister's Independence Ball that was given to the NYC, among many other charities and not-for-profit organizations here in St. Lucia. But we're hearing from Mr. Alfred that the plan is to just enhance the safe space that is the NYC Secretariat that is in the William Peter Boulevard at this time. So thanks to the work of the fundraising efforts from the Prime Minister's Independence Ball, they will be able to enhance their space, create a safe space, a solace for young persons who come to the NYC Secretariat. And just want to speak generally, Nyus, at this point in time, on the work of the NYC here in St. Lucia. Many times, year in, year out, we have this ebb and flow of the participation and the activity of youth and sports councils here in St. Lucia. Can you speak to the status of youth and sports councils right now on island and how everything is coming under the NYC?
Okay, so right now the NYC membership is based on the strength of the NYC is based on the strength of our district youth and sports councils. And over the past few years, we have indeed had some sort of difficulty in ensuring that the youth and sports councils in St. Lucia are sufficiently engaged. And for them to be engaged, you would need a strong NYC that looks to its membership and that values the strength in its membership. And that is something that we've been trying to do a lot with this current executive in terms of engaging the youth and sports councils, because they would be the ones on the ground ensuring that young people on the grassroots level are sufficiently engaged. So we have been doing quite a bit of that in terms of engagement, actually putting them to the fore of a lot of the programming that we've been doing and that we hope to do. Everything at the NYC right now, it revolves around the contribution and basically the involvement of our youth and sports councils. Okay. Currently, we have 21 branches under the umbrella of the NYC, and these branches, of course, would be responsible for over 170 plus youth organizations. So we have challenges with a few in terms of their activity, where a couple of them are due elections. But of course, with the advent of COVID-19 and young people being unable to gather in that physical environment, it has been tough. But we are working with them through our district Youth and Sports Council revitalization plan, where we're looking to actually build capacity within these councils to ensure that they are able as well to adequately represent the young people within the communities.
Okay, you mentioned COVID-19. Can you speak on the part of the NYC, some of the work, perhaps contingency plans that have had to take effect to help to deal with COVID-19 and your mandate?
COVID-19 hit us pretty hard as an NYC because we would have had a quite extensive list of activities and programs to initiate throughout the year. Of course, April would have been Youth Month, and unfortunately, that hampered a lot our plans for Youth Month this year. But I mean, as an organization, your strength is in your ability to adapt to situations like this. And we have been trying quite feverishly to adapt to the COVID-19 situation. We have made education, especially during COVID, a top priority in terms of engaging young people on what they need to do, how they need to be responsible, because a lot of the time in the early stages, we heard that, you know, young people thought that they were invincible. So in terms of kind of putting aside that notion, education was a big part of it. But in terms of our response after, we're actually in the process of, we will launch soon, well, this week, a drive to assist young people who have been affected by COVID-19, especially students. Because with so many young people being out of jobs and so many parents being out of jobs, it is a real situation where some young people will not be able to get the necessities to go to school. Yes, there are social protection programs in St. Lucia, but they are unable to reach every single young person who is in need. So we will be launching an educational assistance program this week, where we will ask St. Lucians to donate towards assisting us in catering for these students who would not benefit from the normal social assistance program. So we can definitely look forward to that. But apart from that, we're in the process of launching our strategic plan for the next few years. And a lot of that would be basically trying to assist young people develop socially, holistically, and basically helping them reach out and to give the voice on a lot of the matters that affect young people.
Okay, going back to the fundraiser, I know you have the launch coming up, but if you could just give us some more information as to how perhaps persons who are in a position to help out can give their monies, donate in cash and kind.
Yes, so I would say first of all that, you know, we might be tempted, a lot of people might be tempted to say that, you know what, there are these organizations that assist young people with that, but we're asking St. Lucians to think outside of that no matter what it is that there is in place, you will find some young people who would slip through the cracks, where these social programs would not reach out to them. So these are the young people that we're trying to reach through this fundraising effort. And of course, we are hoping that young people would donate through cash. We will provide the platforms via our banks and PayPal and other means to ensure that people are, as much as possible, are able to provide or get a platform that they could donate that is more convenient to them. So we will be using NTN for that fundraiser. So during the launch, definitely we will be providing a bit more detail to that.
Okay, wonderful. And just any other general work of the NYC, you did speak to COVID-19. I wanted to make that point. As you mentioned, a lot of parents out of a job, plunged on the breadline due to COVID, the effects of COVID-19. And students, you know, now being displaced. How do they deal with resources? We're book lists flooding in. Carlton, your book list came through, you know, already. And a lot of parents are wondering what's going to happen, you know, based on the uncertainty that looms. But another thing to add is that there are a lot of young people who are out of a job, because when you look at young persons up to 35 years old, persons who are working in the tourism sector and what have you. Can you just reinforce the point? I know the National Youth Council has done that before, but the reinforce the point of the significance of the youth voice, because who feels it knows it. You know, and we've had a significant section of the population, youthful population, who has been, you know, severely affected by the effects of COVID-19. Can you speak on persons having more of a voice, speaking up more, getting more involved? You know, Carlton and I were just speaking about persons listening to Parliament more, you know, and being informed about what is happening for the welfare of the population. So can you just speak to the significance of that?
Definitely, that is something that the NYC continues to advocate in terms of young people speaking out. That is why we are so, we've made it such a priority for initiatives such as Youth Parliament. And I believe this year we had one of our more outstanding youth parliaments. And it's all about having young people get into the habit of speaking out on matters that affect them. Of course, the NYC serves as an organization that is supposed to advocate for those who cannot speak out for themselves or don't feel comfortable speaking out for themselves. So I think that some of our efforts recently in terms of reaching out to the government in terms of the ratification of the National Youth Policy, that is something that we see as a top priority, and we're continuing to advocate for. We're supposed to meet with the relevant authorities to discuss the way forward to that. But definitely, the NYC, when you mention employment, we are not in a position to provide direct employment to young people in St. Lucia. But where we can come in is in terms of filling in the gaps, in terms of assisting them in providing the necessary skills that they would be more competent and they would be more employable. So that is what we're looking at in the short term, in terms of engaging young people and building capacity. But definitely we see our organization as a conduit in terms of getting young people involved in the political process, the parliamentary process, getting them involved in youth parliament, like you said. And I mean, with all of these things come opportunities as well to basically engage and showcase themselves on the national level as well.
Okay. I now hand over to Carlton to just engage you in Creole. We heard that you're an expert in the Creole language.
I would say fluent, not expert.
So I leave you at the mercy of Carlton.
You was very excited when I said that.
Yes.
Oh yes, definitely.
I will speak the language.
Et puis, bon matin, moi bien, et qui a fait nous plaisir, ici à Saint-Camadlan pour nous, et puis un jeune gens, monsieur Nyus Alfred, et vous voyez ça, c'est lui qui a représenté jeunes gens, office pour jeunes gens, Saint-Lucie. Pour vous qui a suivi nous, faire les suivre nous ici, vous voyez ça, puis pas très longtemps, l'année passée, si j'ai voulu, les 10, à peu près 17 différentes charités joignent assistance et puis assistance ça a sorti hors d'activité qui yo ka chen gouvernement ka chen ici eh ben ça yo crié bol premier ministre là et puis pour la peine monsieur Nyus cette organisation c'est yon qui joine assistance quoi on ça nous ici et puis vinn ben nous plus information les ni pour faire et puis ça monsieur Nyus bienvenue dis-nous comment position et premier pas qui sa organisation responsable pour.
OK, non moi c'est Nyus Alfred, moi sorti Soisey, c'est Jean Soisey et puis moi c'est président council jeunesse cette lycée. Et sa organisation nous a fait c'est nous a représenter jeunesse cette lycée. So tout ça qui vous est fait et puis jeunesse cette lycée nous a basically nous a représenter yo.
So, oui. C'est ça organisation qu'a fait. Nous bien content pour donner ça. Bon, quand il vient pour assistance qui George joine, ça c'est assistance financière. Dis-nous qui plan on est pour l'argent ça et raison hot ni plan ça.
C'est vrai d'où les nous joindre assistance ça là, nous y chai. Nous y chai. Puis ça c'est un bagage nous va faire. Nous comptons chai. Ça c'est pas nous va faire pour un chai temps. Puis office NYC c'était dehors castué. Et puis les jeunes monde voulaient aller NYC yo pour marcher en chai. Et de laisser côté yo pour aller c'est pas côté qui pas des sort. So c'est pour ça nous décidé pour mettre office NYC just a ville castué ko yo jeune monde ça venir et puis ça apprécier yo ça servir office là pour faire ça yo te voulait si yo te voulait assistance et puis l'école yo si yo te voulait bagay comme ça. Mais les nous jeunes monde commencer à venir office NYC. Yo commencer à venir là pour faire travail l'école ou yo commencer à venir là pour parler puis on a l'autre pour ni meeting. Nous décider pour faire office là pour tourner pour un place qui jeune monde ça venir pour yo ville confortable basically. So c'est pour ça nous voulons tourner place là pour place que jeune monde ça venir ça fait toutes ces bagailles ça là. So c'est pour ça nous really apprécier donation que le gouvernement bail pour NYC.
Eh ben monsieur Nyus lay vini pour place là et ben office là nous ka gain meb hot ka gain mettre différents équipements dans la bail jeunes gens. Dis-nous à part di ou ni place ça comme office bail jeunes gens qui l'autre responsabilité organisation comme ça ou ani parce que maintenant nous parler di ou ni à peu près 21 branches et puis on n'est plus passé en 120 organisations. Dis-moi qui ça encore à part dire ni en côté pour moun ça vini joindre ensemble mais pour autres peut-être ni meeting et bagay qui responsabilité organisation ni encore
Les modou NYC c'est une organisation qui a représenté jeune monde qui passe à parler pour koyo. Jeune monde qui passe à représenter koyo. So gouvernement passe à faire toute bagaille. Et puis là il y a une gap à côté. So responsabilité NYC c'est pour try faire ces bagailles là qui un gouvernement pas ça fait. So si y a l'année jeune monde qui ou ça et puis Covid, en chaque jeune monde toi koyo sans travail. So NYC a présent pour mettre koyo dans position pour bailler jeune monde envoi pas envoi peut-être mais assistance assistance nous pas ça bailler au travail c'est ça nous pas de l'argent nous pas ça bailler au travail mais nous ça aider in terms of try assister yo joindre travail là so si c'est pour manière pour matcher application manière pour faire un interview so nous ça aider toutes ces bagailles ça là so NYC nous a fait toute bagaille in terms of élection qui venir l'autre année as well so NYC nous avons mis dans une position pour motiver jeunes monde about responsibility yo as citizens citoyens cette ici pour basically motiver yo pour tirer raison yo pour vote et puis toute information about vote about élection that yo brisé avant élection qui supposé l'autre l'année.
Moi bien content de parler à ça parce que moi Jesse toujours une discussion ça là vini pour moun ka comprendre qui ça y est droit ou pour puis aller puis vote et puis pour qui ça on responsabilité ça. Yo nan c'est ba là moi temps nous parler à sur lancer là vini pour ça fait Covid qui position qui manière NYC where Covid et dommage là il a fait qui manière hot ka du bout là vini pour Covid qui position hot sur Covid avec qui manière ou même ka ouais
Covid affecté NYC en chai même quand chai organisation cette ici Covid affecté nous en chai puis avril c'était supposé moi jeunesse cette ici et nous tenions chai bagay pour jeunesse cette ici en avril mais puis Covid affecté nous manière été nous pas ça fait un chai ici bagay ça là mais nous still ouais ici responsabilité nous pour basically assister jeune monde en ça là so l'année chai jeunesse le septembre vini l'année ça là qui pas ça afforder bagay pour aller l'école il pas ça afforder bag livre je sais pas la boîte bouclis là do talé il pas ça afforder sa piste uniforme c'est bagay ça la piste maman yo papa yo pas ni travail Covid pour travailler en chai moun. So nous kay try faire un téléphone where nous kay basically try joindre assistance by ces moun ça là qui pas kay ça afford ces barrières l'école ça là. So l'autre point nous kay try faire téléphone ça là et puis nous kay hope that cette lycéen kay toi payer un chair yo pour buy pour ces jeunes moun ça là qui pas kay ça à l'école mané en septembre.
OK. Eh ben là on est monsieur dame là ni pour faire et puis monsieur Nyus encore moi toujours content là on est pour faire bagaille pour faire puis jeunesse parce que moi crois à pile les jeunesse qui a été derrière chaque ces décision qui a fait là et qui bien content pour jeune monde qui a amassé responsabilité ça et comme bien dit yon moins content tant il dit là vini pour situation côté yo ka élever l'idée jeune maman yo ka indiquer yo et yo ka assister yo faire yo comprendre di voyo avec responsabilité à yo ni pour en parmi l'autre bagaille vote et puis comprendre ça responsabilité ça y quand un citoyen simple ici. Eh bien, messieurs, dames, ça c'était monsieur Nyus Alfred, lui qui est la responsable, là, il vient pour jeunes gens simple ici, qui a parlé sous donation à Johan, qui c'est financial, Johan, qui dit manière ça a assisté yo, expressement là, il vient pour mettre officieux, avec place là, qu'on a commandé jeunes gens simple ici, en ordre. Merci tellement, monsieur Nyus, avec nous, suite à tout ça qui est bon, et puis tout travail là, ou qu'a fait après. OK?
Thank you.
Eh ben, moi vieux et passe au bail mademoiselle Jessie. Eh ben pour la peine moi va au mic la vie Jessie.
Mais We'd just like to thank each and every one of you for watching this morning. We continue, as usual, with our NTN programming with this morning's update. Thank you so much for watching. It's all the time we have for now, but we've spoken to Mr. Nyus Alfred from the NYC on the donation that was received from the Prime Minister's Independence Ball proceeds, amounting to $300,000 going to a number of charities and other not-for-profit organizations. So we do hope that it will go a long way in your NYC efforts, and hopefully we can get some more of the recipients of this Prime Minister's Independence Ball to sit in with us in the next few days to get an understanding of what their work is all about. I know certainly Carlton and myself, during the ceremony, the handing over ceremony, we hadn't heard of a few of the organizations, and they're doing extensive work, helping the poor, the vulnerable persons at risk. And so we do hope we can have them in the next few days to speak on the work that they are doing. We've just given you earlier in the broadcast the latest stories for this 24-hour news cycle. My name is Jessie Leonce. On behalf of Carlton Cyril and the rest of the production team, we'd like to thank you so much for watching, and do enjoy the rest of your day. Stay tuned for more NTN programming.